for your scorecard?
Not yet, ma'am.
Why? क्यों क्यों?
I forgot.
You forgot. Wow.
Yes.
That day you told me in the center, like in the institute, and now you forgot. Okay. Make sure you reach out to them and ask them for the scorecard. Okay. I will also see what I can do, but
Yes,
mostly
ma'am.
you as a student will have to reach out and do it. Okay. Okay. Let's get started with the listening lesson 3. Oh, your Now, listening lesson 3, here we talk about architecture. Okay, I'm sure you guys know what is architecture, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Here, mainly, we are going to look at how to identify the topic or the main idea of the academic lecture that we have, how to take notes for an academic lecture, and we are also going to look at how to identify listening question types that we have. Okay, now the first warm up part that we have over here is the residential areas. So, when you are at the library at your university, it will usually offer various services which are just other than books and all the other things that they offer, correct? Now this is an important part of your college life, because whenever we need any kind of resources to do assignment, any kind of research that we have to do, we usually go to the library to get the resources, correct? So
Yes, ma'am.
that makes it the most visited place on the campus. Now, along with all the services that the university offers, university library offers, guest lecture is also one of the features of it, which you guys might know, correct? Now, you have to look at the pictures and you have to tell me what type of area is each picture showing you.
Ma'am, first one is showing dormitory
Mm-hmm.
in university. Second one is showing some park or not a park, like a small canal
Mm-hmm.
in the university. Third one is showing the department, and fourth one is showing, I think, petrochemical industry, petroleum industry, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ranjali, what are your guesses?
Ma'am, first one is showing university, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Second one, lakeside view.
Mm-hmm.
Third one is showing some corporate area. And fourth one is industrial area.
Okay, very good. Next, in which area do people usually live?
Residential areas.
Residential areas, very good. And when choosing an area to live in, what factors do you consider and why?
Environment.
One word answer,
No,
two
ma'am.
sentence
No, no.
answer.
Uh,
Huh.
we check environment, nearby places, the neighbors, the society,
Mm-hmm.
and the immediate facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah, parks because they play an important role.
Okay.
And
Ranjali?
yeah,
Okay, go on. It's okay. Hmm.
People
Ranjali?
usually choose the area where they can uh, easily get the facilities and also good environment.
Okay. That's it?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Next, over here, we are going to look at housing designs in residential communities, which is the part 2 of our lesson. Okay, here we are going to do a listening exercise. You are going to listen to the beginning of a lecture given by a guest speaker. So you basically have a poster which has been given for a campus talk, okay, which is of course by a guest speaker, as I told you. First, you have to look at the picture and tell me what do you think the topic is going to be about. I hope you guys can see it clearly. I will just share the handout also with you guys. Okay, I've shared the handout. What do you think the lecture is going to be about?
Ma'am, it will be about housing design in residential communities. The architecture around 1940s was much better than the today architecture.
Today's architecture.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, today's architecture.
Pranjali, what do you think what it is going to be about?
And the topic will be the architectures in 1940 housing designs.
Okay. Now let us listen to it and see if your predictions are correct.
Listen to part of a campus talk in the library. The speaker is an architect, and he has been discussing housing designs in residential communities.
In my last talk, we looked at housing designs in America in the 1940s. We looked at some photos and talked about some apartment buildings in Chicago from that time. Now, today we are going to discuss housing designs in suburban residential communities. In the late 1940s, a lot of young families were looking for less expensive houses outside of cities. Now, we have to first talk about a firm called Levitt & Sons, which designed homes and communities to meet this demand. Their residential community, Levittown, was a good example of this. Does anyone know about Levittown?
I heard that Levittown was the first residential community of its kind. There were about 2,000 homes, and everyone lived in Cape Cod houses.
Yes, Cape Cod houses were very popular in the northeastern United States because their design was based on the needs of the people. Okay, let's move on to the features of the Cape Cod house. As I mentioned before, these homes were designed to meet the expectations of young suburban families. So the original floor plan was very simple. One thing about the floor plan was that the living room, the bedrooms, the bathroom, and the kitchen were all on the same floor. The bathroom was next to the kitchen so that they could share one plumbing system. This kept building costs down. Another feature of the Cape Cod house was that it could be expanded if the family needed more space. The house had an attic space that could be changed into another bedroom. Furthermore, all the houses were built economically because they were built in the same way and with the same material. Remember, young families who lived outside the city couldn't afford expensive houses, so it was very important to keep construction costs down. As a result, the whole community looked the same except for the color of each house.
Wouldn't a community like that look a bit boring? I mean, all the houses looked identical.
You're right. So, after a few years, the company designed a second version of the Cape Cod house. The roof was a bit different from the original version, and the walls had a more modern look. The second version was called a ranch house. Now, I guess it's a good time to talk about the ranch house because it was very efficient and popular with families at that time. When you look at the two types of houses, the Cape Cod and the ranch, you'll find that they are similar in most ways. But there's an important difference too. The living room of the ranch house is in the back, while the Cape Cod house has a living room in the front of the house. The way the ranch house is set up actually gives the residents more private space. People felt more comfortable talking about work problems when others couldn't overhear them. Children, instead of running in the street, could play in the backyards of their homes safely. And parents could stay at home and watch their children from inside the house. There was a clear separation between private space and public space. Oh, and I have to mention that Levitt & Sons offered their ranch houses for sale at a low price. They had several ways to keep their construction costs down. One way was to use simple and cost-saving building methods. Another way was to train each worker to do a specific task. You know, just like the assembly line where one worker is responsible for one particular job. This could actually make the construction move faster and keep the costs down at the same time. Thanks to these cost-saving methods, Levitt & Sons was able to offer the ranch house at a lower price, and their designs became a model for the suburban residential community throughout the country.
Okay. Now, the next part that we have, you don't have any questions on this as of now, but the next part in the unit that we have is how to listen for the main topic of academic lectures. Now, understanding the main part of the lecture, or main gist of the question, is very important. Gist of the lecture is very important for us, but along with that we have to understand, do not get stuck in your examination if you are not able to gauge this. Many times it could happen that you get distracted and you forgot to listen to this part, and that is the reason you did not make a note of it, and you are stuck on that, and because of that you are not making notes of any other points also in the lecture. Okay, that should not happen. If you miss it, let it go. Once you listen to the whole conversation, whole lecture, you will understand what was the whole idea behind it. Okay, and when the question pops up on the screen with the options, you should be able to gauge it. Understand this, because many times it happens the students get stuck on this question, because we know that we will always get this question of what was the whole purpose of the conversation, or what is the professor actually talking about. We will get this question, so we try to keep waiting for that answer, and if we are not able to get that answer, we lose focus. That should not happen. Usually you should be able to gauge it, but if not, it's fine, I would say, in the actual examination. Okay, remember that part. Don't get stuck on it. That's what I'm trying to say over here. Now, as we know, the main topic is the idea or the issue that the lecturer will be presenting in his lecture or the speech over here, correct? The main topic is introduced at the beginning of the lecture most of the times. Now, the beginning of the lecture will tell you what the conversation is about, or if it's a conversation it will tell you about the conversation, if it's a lecture it will tell you about the lecture, which will help you to understand what they are going to talk about in the whole task also. Now, that is where you will try to pay attention to the words like today's topic is. Now, let us continue our discussion on. Today, we are going to talk about. That is how even I start my lecture, correct? Today, we are going to look at the listening lesson 3. That's what I started off with. So, that's what we have to listen to. Once we listen to the lesson 3, you know that okay, we are moving ahead, we are doing the listening task, and then I told you the name of the lecture that we have, that is architecture. We are going to talk about architecture, so you guys were able to gauge okay, we are going to look at some things, some infrastructure, some architecture and we are going to listen to the lecture similar point, correct? So that's what should give you the gist of it. Understood? So that's where we have to pay attention in the actual test. Another thing that we learn over here is how to take notes. How to take notes for main idea of the academic lecture. Now understand this, taking notes is very important in your examination. But even if you are not able to take notes, it's fine. Remember what I had told you when we did the question types in listening, that if you're not able to make notes, if you're not able to take notes, because taking notes are distracting sometimes. If we focus on taking notes, we happen to lose focus on what the professor is saying or what the speaker is saying in the conversation, correct, in the audio basically. So if you feel that the note taking is not your cup of tea, it's fine, you get only 5 questions on it. But again, it totally depends on how good you are with your memory, also how active listener you are. Understand that also. Now what do we mean when I say active listening? Active listening is listening to understand rather than just listening. Okay, here you have to listen to the audio first, and then you move ahead, and then you understand how to uh, what questions you'll be getting, correct? You don't have the questions in front of you when you're listening to the audio, so you don't know the information that you have to gauge. So that's where you have to remember everything or most of the things from the conversation or the audio. But if you take notes, it becomes better for you. When the question comes on your screen, you can just refer to your notes. But if you feel the notes are too distracting, manage your notes accordingly. Don't go ahead and make lot of notes. Lot of notes are not going to help you. Okay, again, when I say this, sometimes it helps. Hamza, you might remember when it said I used to take a lot of notes, because that's what
Yes, ma'am.
his idea of paying attention was. His eyes were distracting him, so he used to focus on taking notes. That's what helped him to pay attention to the audio. So understand your type, how you are able to do it. Okay, one rule or one tip does not go for all of us. Okay, we have to understand what works for us. And when can you understand that? You can understand that while giving the mock tests. You have to understand, make that strategy, keep that strategy ready with you, implement that strategy in the last few mock tests that we'll do, and see if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, discard it. But when you go for the actual test, वहाँ पर आप strategy बनाते नहीं बैठोगे. That's where you have to just go and start fighting, I would say. Like the way you go in a war. Okay, your mock tests are your practice where you make all the strategies. Ki, okay, this is how I will hold the pen, this is how I will attempt the question, this is what I will do. That's where you make all the strategies. During the exam, you just execute it. That's what you have to remember. In the exam, you cannot keep doing all these things. Understood? That's what is very, very important. So understand your type, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Note taking works for you or doesn't work for you. That's what you need to understand. Okay, now when I say don't take a lot of notes, you can just take one word notes also. Say in the lecture the professor says we are going to focus on how glaciers form. Your notes could be glaciers form. If you want, you can skip vowels also. You can just write GLAC. That's how I would write it. Put full stop, because that word gives me the cue क्योंकि glaciers, क्योंकि मुझे वो याद रहेगा ना. आई एम श्योर कि मुझे वो 5-10 मिनट के लिए तो याद रहेगा. इतनी शॉर्ट टर्म मेमोरी भी नहीं है मेरी. करेक्ट. सो आई माइट जस्ट राइट GLAC dot and FRM to save my time over there, because I have to pay attention also. I don't want to get distracted with the note making part. If you feel your writing is fast, you can write the whole word also over there. But that should give you the cue कि आपने वहाँ पर क्या सुना था. What you had heard over there, it should be helpful for you to jog the memory. Okay, you guys have to remember that audio only for 7 to 8 minutes. Not after that. But those 7 to 8 minutes are very, very crucial for us. Okay, even if you write one word glaciers and you make some symbol, like जो triangle का symbol दिया है बाजू में, to say form, correct, you can do that. When I was in my 12th, when I used to, like when I had to give my boards, when I used to make my short notes for revision, I used to use only symbols. बट वो सिम्बल्स का मुझे मीनिंग पता होना चाहिए. नाउ अंडरस्टैंड द नोट्स दैट यू टेक इन योर एग्जाम, दे आर फॉर योर रेफरेंस. You don't have to show those notes to anyone else. Okay, so you should be able to comprehend what is written over there. You should be able to gauge the meaning of what is written over there. You should be able to understand your handwriting and what you have written. तो मैंने जो GLAC लिखा, वो मुझे उससे मेरा मीनिंग समझ में आ जाएगा. मे बी वेन यू लुक एट इट यू माइट नॉट अंडरस्टैंड द मीनिंग ऑफ इट. Okay, so that is what we have to understand when we talk about note taking. Now you guys tell me, how do you usually take notes? Pranjali, first you tell me, as you have given the test twice. You should tell me how you take notes usually.
Ma'am, I take notes very large,
Mm-hmm.
but also
A lot
focus
of notes. Large नहीं होता, large size होती है.
lot of note,
Lot of
but
notes.
also focus on the main idea and the reason that they provide.
Okay. But when you say you take a lot of notes, what do you write? What are the main things that you write?
The main thing which I mean, the focus is on the main topic idea.
Mm-hmm. And after that?
Just move on the other reason.
Okay. Hamza, what about you?
Ma'am, short words like
Mm-hmm.
I can give the recent example,
Mm-hmm.
the listening passage which I heard right now. So I wrote architect, housing design, Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and housing design in suburban communities, less expensive. The first community, Cape Cod houses. So I write usually words
Mm-hmm.
which are mainly focusing. That's it. I don't write proper sentences.
Okay. Okay,
Like
that's fine.
short
Yeah,
words.
don't
Like
write words. It's not
yes.
prescribed to write words, I would say. Okay. Now, as you know, that whenever we are taking notes, we have to focus on the content and not the delivery. Okay, we don't have to focus on how he is saying it. We have to focus on the part on what the professor is saying. Because how वाला जब भी question आता है, where we have to understand their intonation, their uh, mood of the speaker. Correct? We get it on the screen again and we can replay that part of the audio. Correct? So that is where we have to make sure that when we take notes, we focus on what the professor is saying, not his presentation style. Okay. Also, you guys know that whenever you listen to the lecture, you might also get examples, questions from the examples over there. This goes even for your speaking. Correct? Even in speaking, the fourth task always asks you for examples which the professor has mentioned. So make sure you note those examples also. Along with that, understand the flow of the lecture also. That will help you to understand on what the professor is saying. Okay, along with that, main thing is you have to avoid the distractions which come up in the lectures. Now your listening over here becomes important in your listening task, in your speaking task, as well as your writing task. So these tips that I'm giving you, they go in all the three tasks over here. Okay, avoid the distractions. What do me I mean when I say distractions? There could be distractions like coughing, shuffling paper, some noises which are not really important to our lecture. Correct? Now that's where you will have to ignore it basically. When the professor starts saying something, anticipate what you're going to listen to in the lecture. That also becomes very helpful. Okay, anticipate what you will hear. As you know that you can think faster than the lecturer can speak, try to begin to anticipate what the professor is going to say if you feel that you are getting distracted in between. Now, as I said, pay attention and stay active during the whole lecture. Listen actively. अपने thoughts, see, our thoughts never stop. Okay, you might be in that audio, like you might be listening to that audio and you might be thinking in the actual test, how do I have to go back home? Should I take the auto or should I take the cab or should I take the metro? Correct, these types of questions keep coming up in our head because that's what our brain is designed for. Correct, our thoughts basically never stop. So that's where we have to make sure कि हाँ ऐसे questions आते हैं, but we have to come back to the audio. We have to pay attention to the audio because if you remember during the first session when I explained the listening task, I told you ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि because you did not make note of something, you missed out on that question और क्वेश्चन उसी पार्ट में से आया एंड यू डोंट हैव इट रिटन विथ यू एंड that is the reason because you don't remember you are not able to answer it. That shouldn't happen. Even if you have not written down anything, with the audio that you have listened to with your memory you should be able to answer it, I would say. Okay, that's how actively you have to listen to it. Understood? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now when you are listening, of course you will write down the key information the way Hamza said right now. That is how you're going to write down the key information which the professor is mentioning, because we know when we do the practice test also you might have understood कि okay ये question आता है, ये question आता है, ये question कभी नहीं पूछते हैं. Correct, you will understand the main parts of it, but I would say be observant, be mindful when you do the mock tests. If I have released this course also, you guys might have it with you. Go back and look at the types of questions which were there. सी कि कौन से पार्ट में से कुछ नहीं पूछा गया था एंड कौन से पार्ट में से पूछा ही गया था. यू विल सी दैट in reading also and in listening also, they ask you major points, they don't ask you minor points. कौन से year में हुआ था ये नहीं पूछेंगे. Okay, what happened before that year and what happened after that year, these types of questions will be asked. So you have to be observant and you have to make sure that you make notes accordingly. Don't write down something which is unnecessary, because you will waste your time. As I said, lot of us cannot focus on writing and listening at the same time. So if you're writing down, you could get distracted from the audio. If you're writing down something unnecessary, you could get distracted from the audio, and that's where you could miss out on the essential information. Okay, that's what we need to make sure. Along with that, you will pay attention to the keywords, the signal words that the professor or the people in the conversation use. There are three reasons why. So when he's saying three reasons, you should know that okay, he's going to mention three reasons and कुछ तो question आएगा इस पे मुझे. ठीक है, so you write down those three reasons. Then he will go ahead and say first. When he says first, you have to write it down. When he says second, you have to write it down. When he says third, you have to write it down. What I want to talk about is, and he will give the main topic over there. Okay, and the most important thing is he will give the main point over there. A major development in the field of, and he will give the main topic over there. Why it was so important is, why it was so important, dash dash dash. So he will give the main points over there. So while taking the notes, this should be your cues, these should be your cues of where you are supposed to take the notes. Of course we know all the other signal words because हमने जब listening वाला audio देखे थे, videos देखे थे, we had gone through it. The professor over there also explained as well. We have words like on the other hand, last time, on the contrary, for example, just like, similarly, contrast, also, so, in fact, further, ये सारे words आ जाते हैं. Again, we have to try using these connectors, but we have to make in writing. We have to try using these connectors in speaking and writing. But whenever we are listening, these should be your cues. Okay, then your conclusion words, therefore, in conclusion, in other words, as a result, finally, in summary, from this we see that, ऐसे करके you have to write down the important thing, the most important thing. Now this is important. Whenever the professor says these kind of words, it becomes very very important for you. Now when you make notes, when you take notes, there are various methods which you can use. Okay, as I said, you can write down single words or phrases, you can focus on the technical terms, you can focus on numbers. That should help you to remember what has been said in the lecture. This is one method of doing it. Okay, it can help you associate with whatever has been said in that particular lecture or the conversation. Correct? But the way you should know your memory कि आप कितने टाइम तक क्या चीज़ याद रख सकते हो. Sometimes this might not be helpful if you are not able to remember the things from keywords. Now if I listen to something, I know I am going to remember that with keywords. I will remember it at least for my if I am listening to something which is very very intriguing and interesting for me, I will remember it for lifetime. I know that with that keyword. ठीक है, but that's how you should know how good your memory is. If you feel that okay, memory is not good, you will not rely on this first method of taking the notes only with keywords. This is called a keyword method. It will only work if your memory is a little bit good, I would say. Okay, now maybe if you feel that this method is something that I can take help of, maybe you can start off with it, you can try it. If you feel it's not useful, then you can discard it. Okay, as you have a little bit of time, I wouldn't say for Pranjali you don't have a lot of time, Hamza you have a lot of time, so you can try it. Next is charting method. Charting method, here you will determine the steps or categories which are going to be covered in the lecture, and here you will, of course, you will prepare a table and you will write it down in the table, whatever information is going to be presented, and it will be like a chart for you. Okay, so main point and then the supporting details, main point and the supporting details, that is how you will put it in a chart. So before you start with the listening audio, you will have to make that chart quickly. Okay, that is something that you can do. As you listen to the lecture, you can record the important information over there, the words, phrases, main ideas, the main details, and you can put them into steps, so you know what has been asked before, what has been asked later, what has been asked after that. This is good because it reduces the amount of writing which is necessary for us. You can easily review your facts and compare the categories. जो आपका एक टेबल वाला क्वेश्चन आता है हमेशा, it makes it easier for that. Okay, but it could be difficult sometimes of how to use it. Okay, it could be difficult to understand the appropriate categories sometimes. So this will be only helpful if you practice on it, I would say. Okay, but for your lecture this would be useful because sometimes you have to put categories, you have to mention steps, correct? So this will be useful over there, and it will be easy for you to review the notes also. The next one is outlining method. Outlining method, you can listen to a lecture or discussion over here, and you can record the major points by organizing the information in a logical pattern, say from the broadest topic to the smallest topic. Okay, you can place major points farthest to the left, पेपर में आपके लेफ्ट साइड पे रख सकते हो मेजर पॉइंट्स, एंड देन यू कैन राइट small points on the right hand side. Okay, it could be simple as well as complex labeling which you can do. You can use Roman numbers and then you can use decimals with them. Okay, and I'll also send you a sample of it, how it can look. This method I feel works for everyone, so this is something that you can try. Now advantages of it is that okay, your notes will be well organized if you do it properly. Okay, you record the content as well as relationship between the ideas, and of course it doesn't need any editing or reviewing in your notes to understand the major points from the question. But again, you should be able to use it. That is the only thing that you need to understand. When the lecture is organized in an outline format, this is the best way to put it forward. Okay, understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can try these methods when you do your next mock test this weekend.
Okay.
Okay, that is something that we have to understand. Any questions with note taking method or
No,
anything
ma'am.
over here? Okay.
Ma'am,
Hmm.
the chart question will be always available on that listening session or not?
One question always comes, I would say. 28 question में से एक question तो हमेशा आता ही आता है.
Not in every listening session, no?
Not in every. At
Okay.
least that's what I have observed till now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's how you can take your notes. Now we are going to listen to beginning part of 3 lectures, and you have to note down the main ideas of it that they mention. Okay, let us listen to it.
For today's discussion, we'll talk about birds' parenting behavior.
Sorry, I'll play it again.
For today's discussion, we'll talk about birds' parenting behavior.
Now, let's move on to folktales. Let's first talk about the characteristics of folktales.
Today's topic is on the relationship between the environment and the migration pattern of hummingbirds.
Were you able to gauge the points?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Okay, second one was folk tales. I hope you
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you understood and spelled it correctly. Okay, so the lecture in the lecture it is mentioned as given in the first part, correct? For today's discussion we will talk about birds parenting behavior. When you write notes, you will just write birds parenting behavior. Let's move on to folk tales. You will just write folk tales. उसके आगे चाहिए तो एक वर्ड में characteristics लिख दोगे if needed, if you feel so. Okay, the relationship between the environment and the migration pattern of the hummingbirds. So relationship could be just two sides of arrows which you could write, which will help you to remember that okay, relationship correct? If you want to use symbols to make your notes, that's just what I would do instead of writing the whole word, because relationship is a very big word. एक तो हमारे spellings अच्छे नहीं रहते, that's another question. We don't remember spellings most of the times, and that could waste your time. Okay, that's why short notes also help, I would say. Okay, next part over here. Now, in the TOEFL listening section, you might see questions about the general topic of a lecture, which will ask you what is the main topic of the lecture, what is the lecture mainly about, what are the speakers mainly discussing. We know that we will always get this question. Okay, when we listen to this, we know हमारा एक mark तो sure shot हमें मिलने ही वाला है. To answer these questions, you will listen carefully to the beginning of the lecture and when you hear the expressions that you have just learned, and you will pay attention to it. Okay, you'll pay attention to the main idea which has been presented. Okay, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Now, here I am going to play an audio. Okay, and you have to listen to the audio, and then I will be asking you few questions on it. Just give me 1 minute for that. I'll play the audio.
Listen to part of a campus talk in the library. The speaker is an architect, and he has been discussing housing designs in residential communities.
In my last talk, we looked at housing designs in America in the 1940s. We looked at some photos and talked about some apartment buildings in Chicago from that time. Now, today we are going to discuss housing designs in suburban residential communities. In the late 1940s, a lot of young families were looking for less expensive houses outside of cities. Now, we have to first talk about a firm called Levitt & Sons, which designed homes and communities to meet this demand. Their residential community, Levittown, was a good example of this. Does anyone know about Levittown?
I heard that Levittown was the first residential community of its kind. There were about 2,000 homes, and everyone lived in Cape Cod houses.
Yes, Cape Cod houses were very popular in the northeastern United States because their design was based on the needs of the people. Okay, let's move on to the features of the Cape Cod house. As I mentioned before, these homes were designed to meet the expectations of young suburban families. So the original floor plan was very simple. One thing about the floor plan was that the living room, the bedrooms, the bathroom, and the kitchen were all on the same floor. The bathroom was next to the kitchen so that they could share one plumbing system. This kept building costs down. Another feature of the Cape Cod house was that it could be expanded if the family needed more space. The house had an attic space that could be changed into another bedroom. Furthermore, all the houses were built economically because they were built in the same way and with the same material. Remember, young families who lived outside the city couldn't afford expensive houses, so it was very important to keep construction costs down. As a result, the whole community looked the same except for the color of each house.
Wouldn't a community like that look a bit boring? I mean, all the houses looked identical.
You're right. So, after a few years, the company designed a second version of the Cape Cod house. The roof was a bit different from the original version, and the walls had a more modern look. The second version was called a ranch house. Now, I guess it's a good time to talk about the ranch house because it was very efficient and popular with families at that time. When you look at the two types of houses, the Cape Cod and the ranch, you'll find that they are similar in most ways. But there's an important difference too. The living room of the ranch house is in the back, while the Cape Cod house has a living room in the front of the house. The way the ranch house is set up actually gives the residents more private space. People felt more comfortable talking about work problems when others couldn't overhear them. Children, instead of running in the street, could play in the backyards of their homes safely, and parents could stay at home and watch their children from inside the house. There was a clear separation between private space and public space. Oh, and I have to mention that Levin and Sons offered their ranch houses for sale at a low price. They had several ways to keep their construction costs down. One way was to use simple and cost-saving building methods. Another way was to train each worker to do a specific task. You know, just like the assembly line where one worker is responsible for one particular job. This could actually make the construction move faster and keep the costs down at the same time. Thanks to these cost-saving methods, Levitt & Sons was able to offer the ranch house at a lower price, and their designs became a model for the suburban residential community throughout the country.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to display the questions. They're there in your handout also. You can try answering them from anywhere you want. Tell me once you're done answering them, I'll move to the next part then.
Done.
Done? Okay, next. Now for this, you should remember the lecture. Okay, according to the lecture, which of the four plans below looks more like that of the Cape Cod house? There is one more floor plan. Tell me once you're done going through this, I'll move to the next page. Next slide.
Done.
Floor plan B.
Done, ma'am.
Okay, next question. Okay, you have some more questions. I want you guys to open the handout. You have it in the handout. There are some more questions. Yep. Okay, sorry. I have it. 1 minute. There is some organization issue with this PPT. I'll have to check. Done?
Done, ma'am.
Okay. Last question.
Done.
Okay. Let us discuss the answers quickly. Yeah. Tell me the answer to the first one.
D, ma'am.
D.
Yes.
D.
Are you sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
The answer is A.
Mm,
Look at the transcript. I have shared the transcript. See where you went wrong.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Hmm. The answer is A. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Next, number two.
A,
Hmm.
B,
Mm,
and E.
Correct. Very good. Number three.
Ma'am, this one.
A. Floor
Floor.
plan
Yes,
A.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Pranjali.
Because
Go on. Go on.
kitchen and bathroom are next to each other.
Okay. Pranjali.
yes, ma'am. This one because they are on the same floor.
Okay. Floor is just the same. Okay. But the way Hamza said it, that should be easy for you to remember. So our answer is correct.
Okay.
Floor plan A. Okay.
Okay.
Next, number four. Which feature inside of a Cape Cod house help lower its costs?
Ma'am, the this thing about the bathroom and kitchen are next to each other to reduce the
Hmm.
cost of pipeline
Correct. The plumbing system could be combined
plumbing
over
system.
there.
Yes.
Okay. Pranjali, did you get the answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Number five. Pranjali, now you try answering.
Because family couldn't afford.
All the houses were built in the same way and with the same material. That's why the whole community looked the same, no?
Okay.
That's the answer to it. Okay. What was the difference between Cape Cod house and the ranch house?
D.
Yes, ma'am. D.
The answer is B. Ranch houses had more private space.
But ma'am, how will we answer this question? Because we don't know. Like they also have not given that a ranch house separated the kitchen from the bathroom.
They must have mentioned it in the lecture. No, ऐसे थोड़ी होगा. One second. One second. Ranch houses. It is mentioned that the way the ranch house
Yes,
is
ma'am.
set up
Yes.
actually gives the residents more private space. So that's where you had to pay attention. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Last one.
A and C.
Used simple and low cost building methods.
Yes.
Made
Yes,
each
ma'am.
worker responsible for just one specific job. Pranjali, did you get it right?
Yes, ma'am. The same answer.
Okay, very good. Correct. But I would say just try doing this exercise once more if possible. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you got many questions incorrect over there. That's the reason I'm highlighting it. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Was the listening task audio that I video that I shared was useful for you guys? I didn't try the whole thing. I just tried the first task and I found it useful. What do you guys
Uh,
think? It was good
no,
or
yes,
no?
ma'am. It is useful, but not appropriate like this
That
listening
is the
section,
whole
which
thing. When you look at
yes,
the
ma'am.
when you look at different sources now, that's what happens. The difficulty level will vary according to the source that you are trying to use. That is the reason I do not usually share external study material. I only share the study material which has been given by ETS to us. Okay, so
Yes,
all the
ma'am.
study material that I use in the class, it is from the ETS directly. Okay, if you use any other study material, then of course the difficulty level is going to vary according to how they have set up. It won't be appropriate according to the task that we want.
Yes, ma'am. That's why
Okay.
I was asking
So
some material.
we have it
Yeah.
only what we do in the class. So I would say
Okay.
use that only like to practice again. That will be
Okay.
useful for you. जैसे कि आज समझो हमने ये वाला क्लास में किया. Use the same audio. If you want, I will give you the access to the audio. I don't think I have shared it with you guys.
No, ma'am. Ma'am, please give access to the audio lectures which
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
are mentioned in your official guide. We
I have
only have
given that.
transcript.
I have given that.
I haven't seen, ma'am.
Check it once. If you don't have it, just drop your email IDs in the group. I will share it again. I will also check.
Okay.
I must have shared it at the start, but if not, I will share it again. Not a problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am.
What I was saying is, हाँ जो अपने lessons है ना उसके भी practice करते रहो. That will be helpful for you. Okay.
Okay.
And of course test ready तो है ही हमारा, तो वो भी एक site useful है बहुत. Any external study material if we use ना, then the difficulty level will vary. Okay. Reading is
Okay.
still okay, I would say, but listening is what matters for us. We get only we get very few sources which are accurate according to ETS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
तो वो जो हम एकेडमिक डिस्कशन वाला टास्क करते हैं वो एक साइड अच्छी है, वो थोड़ा सा क्वेश्चन डिफिकल्टी लेवल जो है वो सिमिलर आता है वहाँ पर. ठीक है.
Yes, ma'am. That is easy also, but
हम्म.
this one is difficult.
एग्जैक्टली. ठीक है. नो वरीज, नो वरीज. Okay, then we'll stop over here, guys. We'll continue tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Please study. Please study well. Pranjali, I'm going to reach out to you today for the test registration. It's been high time. I need to do it today.
Okay, ma'am. Sure.
हाँ थोड़ा सा हेक्टिक शेड्यूल चल रहा था उस वजह से. We'll do it today. Okay. I think
Okay.
you can go
Okay.
for fifth,
Okay.
but still you also think over it and then we'll discuss. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. चलो. Bye bye guys. Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you. Bye.
No problem.